Hello students, how are you? I hope you all are okay and fine. Yesterday I have discussed the examination of different sexual offenders either as active agent or the passive agent. Active agent is always a male and passive agent is either a male or the female. Why these sexual offenders are examined for the purpose of sexual assault? This is our today's topic where we will study different sexual offenses which are committed by the different persons for which we examine them. And to know different sections of the law, including the Zina and Hudud ordinance relevant to the sexual offenses. And finally, we will discuss different sexual perversion. This is our today's topic. What is sexual intercourse? Sexual intercourse, this is the penetration of the female genital tract by the male genital to constitute the act of the sexual intercourse or the sexual intercourse approaching the sexual offense. This is not necessary that there should be the complete penetration of the female genitalia by the male genital. Mere the vulval penetration is sufficient to constitute the act of sexual intercourse, which may mount to the level of the sexual offense. Further, there should be no plea taken by the male person, whether he has penetrated completely or not. Mere the penetration of the vulval area by the male genital that is sufficient to constitute the act of the sexual intercourse. And when this level of sexual intercourse is completed, then it is said that he has committed the sexual offense if there is charge or allegation of the offense of the sexual activity. What is sexual offense? Sexual offense, this is the sexual gratification through any illegal sexual intercourse by a man with the second person or with the animals. Means this is achievement of the sexual gratification through any illegal sexual intercourse by a man with the second person or with animal. Here, the important thing is to differentiate between the legal sex or the illegal sex. Only and only the illegal sexual intercourse done by a man for the purpose of sexual gratification with the second person. This second person may be another male or a female person or with any other animal. Sexual offenses are categorized into two parts. In the first part, this is based upon the natural way or using the natural way. The nature has made two ways, or in other words, you can say the nature has described or specified only and only the one natural way, that is the female genital tract. If any other way or the opening of the body other than the female genital tract is used for this purpose, like the anal canal or the oral cavity or any other part of the body, that would be considered to be unnatural. So, natural sexual offenses are those in which the sexual gratification is achieved through any illegal sexual intercourse by a man with other women with the use of male here sexual intercourse is not legal, it is illegal. Second, it is a user course has specification of the nature by using the female genital tract, but the activity is illegal. There are three types of the illegal sex. First one is the zina, second one is the fornication, and third one is the rape. In all these three conditions, the sex is being conducted by using the female genital tract, but the activity is not legal. It is illegal. Then by using the natural opening of the female genital tract and intercourse. Another this like the anal canal or the oral cavity, which is not the recommendations of the nature. This is said to be sexual gratification achieved through any sexual activity by a person with a second person or the animal without the use of the natural means. Here, the sexual activity which is being done, definitely that is illegal. And this is being conducted by a male person with another person. This other person may either be a male or a female or even the animals. And he is using the way which is not supposed to be natural and which is not according to the recommendation of the nature. It has different categories. The sexual relationship between the two males using the unnatural ways, this is said to be homosexuality, also called buggery. Then the homosexuality may also be present between the females. There is again no natural ways to be used, and this is said to be lesbianism. Then there is sexual activity with the animals by using their although natural ways or the unnatural ways, but to have a sex with the animals, it is not recommended by the nature. Again, this will be grouped as the unnatural sexual offense. This is said to be bestiality. In addition to these unnatural ways, there are some perversions in which sexual gratification is achieved by doing some sexual activity in the form of the indecent assaults or the cruelty. So, the sexual offenses are grouped into two categories. In the first category, the sexual activity is being done, but it is illegal. Further, it is based upon the using of the natural opening of the female genital tract. in the form of the zina, rape, or the fornication. There may be sexual offenses whenever there is sexual relationship among the blood relatives or the prohibited relationships that is said to be incest. And in the unnatural ways where sexual activity is being done by using the unnatural openings of the other person, this may be animal. When the unnatural opening is being used between the two males, it is said to be homosexuality in the males. When the unnatural ways are being used in case of the female, it is said to be lesbianism. And when the sex is being done with the animals by using their either natural ways or the unnatural ways, this will be called bestiality. In addition to the practical activity of the sexual intercourse with the male or the females, forming the unnatural sexual offenses, there are some other perversions. In these perversions, there is no sexual activity, but there is sexual gratification by using different means, which will be described in the coming time. In addition to these, there are some sex related offenses which are very serious and cognizable nowadays in the form of the indecent assaults like the harassment or the cruelty. Now we come to the different laws which are related to these sexual offenses. Since the birth of Pakistan in 1947, there have been different laws which have been prevailing in different era of Pakistan. At the birth of Pakistan, the law was derived from the Indian Act, which was dealing with the different activities. According to this law, which was dealing with the sexual offences present at the time of the birth of Pakistan, that was the Section 375 Pakistan Penal Code, and this was said to be rape. Section 375 Pakistan Penal Code, rape. What is rape? It is unlawful sexual intercourse by a man with a woman, but there are different conditions when the sexual activity is done by a male with a woman. This woman may be a female who is the wife of that person, but the age of that female is less than 15 years of the age, irrespective of whether this intercourse is being done with or without the consent of the wife. This is said to be rape because this is punishable or this was punishable. Another form in which the sexual offense is being done with a woman when the age of that woman is under 16 years, and irrespective of whether it is being done with or without the consent of that woman. In the third situation, with any woman whose age is above 16 years, but the sexual activity is without her consent, number one, or when the consent has been achieved, but this achievement of consent is with fraud or putting the female in the fear or by the act of impersonation or by the reason of unsoundness of the mind. So these are the four conditions in which if the sexual activity done by a male by with a female, if this female is even his wife, but his age is less than 15 years, and even if the sexual intercourse is being done with or without her consent, that would be considered to be a rape. Similarly, in the second condition, when the age of the woman is less than 16 years, even if she is not his wife, and activity is being done with or without the consent, this would be considered to be a rape. In the third situation, the age of the woman is about 16 years, but the activity is without her consent. Or if the consent has been obtained, this obtaining the consent is with fraud or putting the female in the circumstances of fear of causing hurt, fear of causing death, or impersonation by the male, or if the female is having insanity or unsoundness of mind due to which she is not capable to give the proper consent, all these three conditions would constitute the sexual offense of the rape. This will be dealt under the section 375 of Pakistan Penal Code. The complete penetration, a completion of the act up to the level of ejaculation, if it is not necessary to constitute the act of the rape. Here you should emphasize that rape would be constituted and there would be three conditions, and these conditions are concerned with the age. In the first condition, even the female is his wife, but his age is less than 15 years. In the second condition, the woman is not his wife, but his age is less than 16 years. And in the third condition, the age of the woman is above 16 years, but consent has not been obtained. Or if the consent has been obtained, there is a role of some fraud, role of some fear, role of some impersonation, or role of insanity. So all these three conditions would constitute the act of the rape. This section of law dealing with the rape under the up to the era of 1979 when General Ziaul Haq made some amendments and he brought Hudud Ordinance, which is said to be 1979. It has different sections. These sections, which are most important with the medical persons, are the section 2, section 4, section 5, and section 6. Section 2 deals with the different definitions. In this section, the definition of the adult has been described. Adult means a person who has attained maturity. Maturity means he has reached up to the age of the puberty, and this is variable according to the age. But luckily, there is some description of the age for the male or the female. For male, it is considered that he must have achieved the age of 18 years to be called as an adult, and for female, he must have achieved the age of 16 years to be called as the adult. Otherwise, before this time in the Islamic law, this was sufficient to call a woman to be adult if she starts menstruating, means she has achieved the level of the stage of the puberty, and then she can be called as an adult. But in this section 2, the age of the male and age of the female has been specified to be called as the adult. For male, it is 18 years, and for females, it is 16 years. Second definition is had. Had means punishment. Order. Another definition is the muhsan. 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 Muhsan may be a male, Muhsan may be a female. When we talk about the male Muhsan, its definition is that this is an adult male Muslim who is not insane and who has had sexual intercourse with an adult Muslim woman who, at the time of intercourse, is married to him and not insane. In this definition, four criteria has been described. One is he must be adult. Third, he must not be an insane. And fourth, he had enjoyed the sexual intercourse. These four things would constitute the definition of the male Muslim. And this act of the sexual intercourse has been done with an other woman, and this woman is again must be adult. He must be Muslim. He must not be insane. And at the time of enjoying the sexual intercourse, she must be validly married with that male person. Then this would constitute the complete criteria or the definition of the male Muslim. Similarly, the criteria for the female Muslim are that she must be female Muslim, then she should be adult, then she must not be insane, and fourth criteria, she must have enjoyed the sexual intercourse as a result of the marriage with the person, male person, who is again Muslim, again adult, again not insane, and again fourth criteria that she must be having sexual intercourse with that person as a result of the valid marriage. So, to constitute the complete definition of the motion, either for the male or for the female, four criteria are important. First one is both should be Muslim. Second one, both must be adult. Third, both should be not insane. Both should be sane person, either male or the female. And fourth criteria, they must have enjoyed the sexual intercourse as the result of the valid marriage between the male and the female. For example, there had been nikah between the male or the female, but there is no rukhsati, means they have not enjoyed the sexual intercourse. So the fourth criteria will be deficient. So they would not be said to be motion, either male motion or the female motion. The criteria of enjoying the sexual intercourse as a result of the marriage is necessary to constitute the complete definition of the motion. Then the section 4, it deals with the definition of zina. What is zina? This is a man and woman are said to commit zina if they willfully have the sexual intercourse without being validly married to each other. Means whenever there is the sexual activity between the male person and the female person without the valid marriage, they would be said to be guilty of committing zina, irrespective of whether he's a male or the female. Both would be said to be guilty of zina. No single person will be exempted from this definition. So, zina is the sexual intercourse between the male person and the female person, and this sexual activity is willfully in the circumstances when they are not validly married to each other. So, this would constitute the act of zina. Section 5 deals with the punishments. It says that zina is liable to had. Had means the punishment which has been ordered in the Quran and Sunnah. There are two situations or two comprehensive definitions or coverage of this section. In the first, it is said to be a person is said to be liable to had if it is committed by a man who is an adult and not insane with a woman to whom he is not and does not suspect himself to be married. Means if we apply the punishment of had over the male, he must have committed the sexual intercourse with a woman with whom he is not validly married or with whom he does not suspect to have been married. So this section 5 would be implemented in the form of the HUD. Similarly, the same HUD would be applicable to the female if not in whom she is not validly married and does not suspect herself to be married. So, to the orders of Quran and Sunnah has been comprehensively involved to be implemented over both the male offender or the female offender when these offenders are adult and these are not insane and these are not validly married to each other, even there should be no minimum or smallest chance of having or supposing that these are very validly married. So the section of the HUD, that is the section 5, would be applicable over both the offenders. How it would be applied? A person who is guilty of zina is liable to had. In the first edition, This is proved that both the person, male or the female, are adult and they are not insane and they are not validly married, but they have committed this sexual intercourse if both are married, not married with each other, but married with other partners, so they would be said to be Mohsen. In case the offenders are Mohsen, if he or she is a Mohsen, they would be stoned to death at a public place. Or if or if he or she is not a Muslim, means not married. Not married means not married with each other, plus not married with other persons. They are punished at a public space with whipping, numbering 100 stripes. So it is clear from the definitions of these section 5 that HUD would be applicable over both the male offender and the female offender, but two situations are brought into consideration whether they are Mohsen or not. If they are Mohsen, means they are separately married with different other partners, the punishment would be stoned to death at a public place till death. But if they are not Muslim, means they have not enjoyed the sexual intercourse with other valid partners, only the punishment is 100 stripes, but in a open public place. This punishment of stoning to death, this is not the Quranic order. This is the order of the Sunnah. In the persuasion of the orders which has been described in Torah for keeping the Sunnah of Hazrat Musa alayhi salam, there is no order of stoning to death which has been described in Quran. In Quran, there is only the order of striking 100 stripes, which is specific for an unmarried person. Unmarried person means which is not the Muslim. This is the holy verse derived from Surah Nur of Quran Pak, in which it has been ordered that Azaniyatu Wazani Fajlidu Kulla Wahidin Minhuma Me'ata Jalda Wala Ta'khuzkum Bihima Rafatun Fi Dinillahi in Kuntum Tu'minuna Billahi wal Yawmil Akhir وليشهد عذابهما طائفة من المؤمنين. जब बदकारी करने वाली औरत और बदकारी करने वाला मर्द, जब इनकी बदकारी साबित हो जाए तो दोनों में से हर एक को 100 दुर्रे मारो अगर तुम खुदा और रोज़े आखिरत पर ईमान रखते हो तो शरअ खुदा के हुक्म में तुम्हें इन पर हरगिज तरस न आए और चाहिए कि इनकी सजा के वक्त एक जमात भी मौजूद हो. Means this punishment of had should be carried out in the presence of gathering or in an open public place so that there should be a lesson to the viewers at that time. This is the only order which has been described in the Quran in Surah Nur for the non-Muslims. For the Muslim, the order of stoning to death has not been described in Quran, but this is the Sunnah, and this is based upon the Sunnah of Hazrat Musa alayhi salam. Surah Nur, according to according to its revelation, it acquires or attains the number of 102, means after Hijrah at Medina. This surah was revealed as a number 102. But the punishment, which was not clear, had been described in Surah Nisa, which was also revealed after Hijrah at Medina, but it has the number 97. It describes only the detention of the offender at home, and due to the detention, chances of their death is present. Even the punishment of detention was described along with the addition from the order of Almighty Allah कि हो सकता है कि आने वाले वक्त में अल्लाह ताला कोई अच्छी सूरत पैदा कर दे और वो अच्छी सूरत यही थी कि instead of detention there was the punishment of beating up to the 100 stripes. Next comes the section 6, which deals with the Zina bil Jabr. Zina bil Jabr is equated with the rape which was described in the early part of the Constitution of Pakistan. In the early part of the Constitution of Pakistan that was being dealt under the section 375, the rape, but here it has been replaced with the section 6 of the Zina bil Jabr. Now, what does constitute the conditions of the Zina bil Jabr? A person is said to commit Zina bil Jabr if he or she has sexual intercourse he or she is not validly married in any of the following circumstances, namely, again, there are four situations. First one, this sexual intercourse between the male and the female person is against the will of the victim. Number two condition is this is without the consent of the victim. Now, what is the difference between the will and the consent? Consent in Urdu, it equates razamandi, and will, this is mercy. So this is the difference between mercy and razamandi. Razamandi or consent, this is said to be valid if it is given by a person who is supposed to give the valid consent, means he has achieved a certain age, he has proper soundness of the mind, means he is not insane, then the person is not under the effect of the drugs or the intoxication and he is not unconscious. The such type of the consent would be said to be valid consent or razamandi. In case of the will, there is although permission, means there is mercy, but that would not be said to be valid consent because of factor of the age, because of the factor of soundness of the mind, because of the state of consciousness of the person. So this will not constitute the valid consent. This you can say only the will or the mercy. Third condition, there is consent of the victim, but consent has been obtained by putting the victim in the fear of death or the hurt, or by the consent of the victim when the offender knows that the offender is not validly married to the victim, and that the consent is given because the victim believes that the offender is another person to whom he is married or himself to be considered to be validly married. So, in this section 6 dealing with Zina bil Jabr, if you equate it with the section 375 of the rape, there were three conditions, and all the three conditions were dealing with age of the 15-year for the wife partner, age of 16-year for the other than wife partner, and above the age 16-year who is above the age of 16-year but she is not wife and consent has not been obtained. Here, section 6 dealing with Zina bil Jabr, instead of age factors, there is the factor of the permission, means four characteristics, four criteria dealing with the permission in the form of against the will, without the consent, with the consent, but the consent has been obtained by putting the person in the fear of death or hurt, or consent has been obtained in such a way that the offender knows very well that he is not validly married to the victim, but the victim believes due to some reason that this is not the other person with whom he is not validly married. For example, there is a marriage between the two twin brothers. There is load shedding and there is no light or alternative arrangements for the light at home. A person who is not the valid husband of that woman comes in contact with that woman, but that woman supposes that this is the person with whom she is validly married, has the sex intercourse, then this would be said to be the consent which has been achieved by some fraud, by some impersonation, or some malified intention. So the section 6 deals with the zina bil jabr having the element of the consent or the permission in the form of the will or the consent or without the consent or without the consent by putting in the circumstances of fear of death or hurt or some fraud. Section 375 rape was having three constituents. Section 6 Zina bil Jabr has four constituents dealing with the permission, and the section 375 dealing with the age. Now, After the passing of the era of General Zia Haq, there was an era of democratic governments, and there was the amendment in the Hudud Ordinance in the form of the Women Protection Act 2006. The existing law dealing with the sexual assault, that was the Hudud Ordinance 1979, it was amended through the Criminal Law Amendment in the form of the Women Protection Act 2006. Although has been said to be a law which is giving protection to women, rather, if you go in detail, this is against the protection of the rights, rather, it is protecting the male offender at much larger scale. There had been a change where the zina bil jabr has been replaced with the rape. Again, the definition of the rape, which was prevailing since birth of Pakistan up to 1979, was again replaced and become restored in the form of the rape, but with different constituents. Enough, it continues. It was further added to the another situation of fornication to dealing with the situation. What is the difference between zina and fornication? By definition, both are the same, but for the punishment, there is difference between the zina and fornication. This will be elaborated in coming time. Now, the section 375 dealing with the rape. This is the definition in the form that a man is said to commit rape who has sexual intercourse with a woman under the circumstances falling under any of the five following description. The first definition of the rape before 1979 was having three criteria or the three constituents. The definition of zina bil jabr was having four constituents. Now, under the Women Protection Act, the definition of rape under Section 375 has five constituents. First, the sexual activity between the male and the female when these are not validly married. This would be said to be rape if it is against her will. Number two, if it is without her consent. Number three, with her consent when the consent has been obtained by putting her in the fear of death or the hurt, means in the circumstances of fear. Number four, with her consent when the man knows that he is not married to her and that the consent is given because she believes herself to be married, means fraud. Up to these three constituents, it is corresponding with the constituents of the definition of zina bil jabr. The fifth addition is dealing or describing the age of the victim, where it has been said that with or without her consent when she is under the age of 16 years. So, this is the evolutionary changes in the definition of the rape starting from the birth of Pakistan up to 1979. The section Rape 375 was dealing with only the age. In the second era, after 1979 up to 2006, the definition of the zina bil jabr having four constituents dealing are based on the permission means upon the will, upon the consent or without the consent, consent under fear, consent with fraud. Then the definition of the rape under the Women Protection Act having the five constituents means it is the amalgam of the two definitions of zina bil jabr and rape, four constituents of the zina bil jabr, and fifth constituents dealing with the age that is the under the age of 16 years. Nowadays, another bill in assembly is in progress where the age of the 16 years has been enhanced to 18 years for the females. Now, what are the punishments which are described under the section 376 of Pakistan Penal Code of Women Protection Act? That is up to 10 to 25 years and fine. And if offenders are two or more, sentence and fine will be enhanced. Section 496B deals with the definition of the fornication. What is fornication? Fornication is the sexual intercourse between the male person and the female person if they are doing the sexual act willfully and these are not married to each other. This is equating with the definition of the zina. In both zina and fornication, there is no difference. Both are not validly married to each other, and both are doing their sexual intercourse with consensual consent or willfully or willful sexual intercourse. Apparently, there is no difference in the definition of zina and fornication, but their application for registration in the court, the procedures has been changed. What is the punishment? Only the imprisonment up to 5 years or fine not exceeding 10,000 rupees. Now you compare the punishment for zina, that is stoning to death if they are Muslim, and 100 stripes if they are not Muslim. So this is the difference between the punishment of the zina and fornication. How you will put up the complaint of zina in the court. This is a section which deals with the complaint of zina, that is 203A. First is the competency of the court. Clearly, it has been stated that no court shall take cognizance of the offence under the section 5 of the offence of zina except the complaint. Means the case will not be registered, only the complaint will be received. And this complaint will be from the complainant, and this complainant that apparently it is clear not from the offender of the zina or not the offender of the fornication, but it would be from other person. This complaint will be examined by the court, which is added with the statement of at least four adult eyewitnesses who would be said to be valid eyewitnesses. Number one, the condition is that they should be adult. Number two, they should be fulfill the criteria of Tazkiyah Shuhud. What is Tazkiyah Shuhud? These should be the male Muslim persons who have not committed in their life any major sins. Gunahi Kabira. How is it possible? There is no such person available in our society. However, the criteria to become the witness in case of the complaint of zina, the adult person must be fulfilling the criteria of Tazkiyah Shuhud, plus they have seen the act of the complete penetration of the male genital into the female genitals. Again, how is it possible? So these are the conditions which has been put na normal tel hoga to na radana chahiye. So although some facilitation has been made to put up the complaint of zina, but the criteria to make the evidence in the court has been made very difficult, which could not be fulfilled. Number one, to produce the four eyewitnesses at the same time. Number one. Number two, they should be adult Muslim person. Number three, they should be fulfilling the criteria of the Shahu. And fourth one, that is the most difficult, they have seen the act of the sexual intercourse up to the level of the complete penetration. How is it possible? After the examination of the complaint from the complainant, plus the statements of the four adult eyewitnesses, these statements would be recorded by the court and their signature will be achieved. After which, the court will examine the complaint plus the statement of the person. If the court is satisfied, the case will be registered, or if the court is not satisfied, the case would be dismissed at the same time, at the same level. So, this is the fate of complaint of the zina when it is put up in the court. Now, another very strange thing, that is how to register the complaint in case of fornication. Again, there comes the question of competency of the court. The case will be based upon the complaint of the complainant, plus here instead of recording the statement of the four eyewitnesses, only the two adult witnesses has been supposed to be sufficient. It is again against the orders of the Quran and Sunnah, which states to bring the four eyewitnesses here to launch the complaint of fornication. In the court, the complaint should be supported with the statement of only the two adult witnesses. Again, the court will examine the statement plus the statement or the evidence of the two adult witnesses. If the court is satisfied that the case is not appearing valid, that will be disposed of at the same time, otherwise it would be proceeded. Next sexual offense, that is the incest. This is the sexual intercourse by a man with a woman who is closely related to him by blood or by marriage, means within the forbidden degrees of relationship. There is some purity of the relationship or chastity of the relationship, and these relationships should be maintained and continued. If the chastity of these sexual the relationships has been broken because of the sexual intercourse between the male person and the female person, this is said to be incest. There are different forms. If the sexual relationship lies between the father and daughter, this condition is said to be electro complex. If the relationship is between mother and son, it is said to be Oedipus complex. If between the brother and sister, this is said to be pharaonic incest. So incest is the illegal sexual interrelationship among the prohibited relations like the father and daughter, mother and son, sister and brother. Next is the adultery. What is adultery? This is the voluntary sexual intercourse, which is natural one, by a married man with another married woman or between a married woman and some other man who is not her husband. It means this is the natural sexual relationships between the male person and the female persons, but these are not validly married to each other. They are married to other partners, but this is the consensual or the voluntary sexual relationship. This is said to be adultery, and on proving the act of adultery, imprisonment up to 5 years with or without fine is implemented. This was about the natural sexual relationship in the form of incest, rape, or zinabil jabr, or incest, or the adultery. Now we come to the unnatural sexual offenses, where the sexual intercourse or sexual activity is being conducted by using the opening of the body of the victim, which has not been recommended by the nature in the form of the anal opening or the oral cavity or other parts of the body. This is a non-procreative sexual activity, and this is the sexual intercourse against the order of nature with a man, with a woman, or with an animal. In England and Wales, Sexual Offences Act 1967 has legalized homosexuality in private places between the two consenting males of over 21 years, but they should not be working as a merchant seamen. In some countries of this world, homosexuality has been allowed through the legal protections like the England and the Wales, but even then there is some exemptions which has been given to the age and to the occupation like the merchant seaman, so that the diseases which results from such type of the unnatural sexual relationship like the syphilis and gonorrhea, they should not be spread to the other healthy persons. And this is held under the section 377 Pakistan Penal Code. First state of the unnatural sexual offense, that is sodomy. This has been derived of the name of the town Sodom, which is described in the Bible. Also, it has been described in different surah of Quran Pak, where this activity was very common among the people of Hazrat Lut al-Islam. It is of two types, homosexual sodomy or heterosexual sodomy. When there is anal intercourse between the two males, it would be said to be homosexual sodomy. But if the relationships of the anal intercourse are between the male and the female, it is said to be heterosexual sodomy. It is also said to be bagri. There are two partners. One is the active agent, the other the passive agent. Active agent who is performing the act, and passive agent is the person upon whom this activity is being done. These are of two types according to the age. If the age of the person is of adult age, this is said to be gerontophilia. The person who has achieved the age more than 25, 30, or 40 years, this would be their passive agent would be said to be gerontophilia. If the age of the passive agent is up to the age of child, this would be said to be pedestry. And for the young boy, if the passive agent is a young boy, this would be said to be catamite. So, according to the age group, the passive agents have been named different names. For the adult, this would be said to be gerontophilia. For the child passive, passive agent, this would be said to be pedestry. And for the passive agent who is a young boy, this would be said to be catamite. If this act is done with the consent of the two parties, both would be said to be guilty. But if it is being done without the consent of the passive agent, only the active agent would be said to be guilty. This is very common among the groups of the prisoners, members of the armed forces, sailors, young boys living in madrasas, living in barracks, living in hostels. So this is very common unnatural sexual offense being observed in different groups of peoples. It is also very common among the eunuchs or the male prostitutes said to be hijras and zinanas. Second condition of the unnatural sexual offense is that is the tribadism or the lesbianism. This is the homosexuality between the two females. The bagri was between the two males. Sodomy was between the two males. But this is the unnatural sexual relationship between the two females. This is said to be tribadism, lesbianism, or sapphism, after the name of a queen which had been ruling in the very late past. This is the gratification of the sexual desire of a woman by another woman. Now, what the tools are being used to get this gratification? This tool may be either the enlarged clitoris or the artificial penis used by one female being introduced into the other female partner. Who are the groups of the women who are involved in such activities? The groups of the women who are having the repulsion from man, who does not want to have the sexual relationship with the male person. They are having repulsion from the male person because of some psychotic disorders. Instead of enjoying sexual gratification from the male partner, they get the gratification from the female partners. Another group that is involved in such activity, that is the women who are suffering from nymphomania. Nymphomania means the perverted, uncontrollable sexual desire. These women again are having uncontrollable sexual desire, and male partner is not available round the clock. So to get the gratification, the woman who is available, that would become the source of gratification for that woman. So two groups. One is the persons who are having the repulsion from the men, or the women who are having the uncontrollable sexual desire in the form of nymphomania. These are involved men who are living together. Different forms of sexual gratification between the females. Third, unnatural sexual offense. That is the sexual relationship between the male person or the female person and the animals. This is said to be bestiality or the zoophilia. This means sexual intercourse by a human being, whether male or female, with an animal either through the anus or the vagina. It is dealt under the section 3377 Pakistan Penal Code. The animals mostly which are used as a victim, these are the by the males, these are the cows, female sheep, goat, mares, shears, cat, hen, and ducks. These are the victim animals which are used by the males, and the animals which are used as the active agent by the female. These are dogs and horses. Who are the person that would be labeled as the accused person? These are the usually young person employed to look after the animals, and these are having some sexual disorders, who are having sex-starved, lonely individuals suffering from some disorders in their sexual behavior. So this was about the bestiality, which described the illegal, unnatural sexual relationship between the human beings, either male or female, with the animals. The animals being used as the victim by the male are different, and the animals being used as the active agent by the female is a different. And the persons who are involved, they are having some psychotic disorders in their personalities, in their behaviors. Now come to the third category of unnatural sexual offenses, that is related with the sexual perversions. This is said to be paraphilias. These are the abnormal sexual behaviors or activities which are socially prohibited, and it is unacceptable and biologically undesirable. In the first two conditions where I have described, the natural or unnatural sexual offenses. There is commitment or there is committing of the sexual intercourse between the male partner and female partners. Now, in these perversions, there is no actual performance of the sexual activity between the male and the female, but there is expression of the abnormal sexual behavior or the activities, which are socially prohibited, not allowed socially, unacceptable, and biologically these are undesirable. What is the purpose of doing such habitual acts in the form of the sexual perversion just to achieve the sexual gratification without doing any sexual intercourse? Like the masturbation, which is the sexual activity, but this is being done without any sexual intercourse between the male and the females. The persons who are involved in this activity are said to be sexual perverts or the deviants. There are three groups of the sexual perversions. In the first group, which describe the perversions which requires a partner for gratification. Although there is involvement of the two partners, but there is no commitment of sexual relationship. This is the difference between the perversion and the unnatural or the natural sexual offenses. Here, without the involvement of the other partners, no such activity of perversion would be carried out. The first one is the sadism. What is sadism? Sadism, it is the sexual gratification by causing pain, torture, or humiliation to other person. It may be present in both male or the female, with some degree which is higher or having the higher prevalence in one sex or the other sex. It is present in both the male and the female person. Why it is said to be sadism? It has been named after the name of a novel writer, Marquis de Sade, who was a Frenchman, and he has very beautifully described the characters of these male or the female persons, and these characters described by these Frenchmen are worth reading. So sadism is the sexual gratification just by causing pain to others, by torturing to others, by causing humiliation to the other partner. This is said to be sadism. Yes, you can say this is the gratification just by causing pinching to other partners, causing pain to other partners, by causing or torturing to other partners. It is more common in men. It is caused either by biting, burning with the cigarette, or beating, or causing injury to the body, or causing humiliation of the other persons. These are the different ways in which the sexual gratification is achieved by causing pain or torture, humiliation to other partner in the form of biting, burning with cigarettes, beating, injuring her body, or ill treating. These injuries are multiple on may be present on any part of the body, but particularly over the female genitals and the breast. These are the commonly selected areas. Sometimes the sadist, the person who is causing pain to others, is said to be sadist, may kill the partner, called the lust murder. This is the example of the sadism by causing pain to other female partners. This is the example by causing humiliation of the other partners, causing severe injuries leading to death, lust, murder, again causing severe pains to the other partner, lust, murder, causing death of the person. These persons, they perform the sexual intercourse even with the dead bodies after digging the grave and bringing out the dead body, and they perform sexual intercourse or love steps in different forms. This is said to be necrophilia, means they are loving the dead body. Even these persons, they cause torture to the genital area of the other partner, even drink some blood or even eat some flesh to satisfy in the desire. This is said to be necrophagia, means to eat the dead body. And this had been reported in the last 2, 3, 4 years at Karachi and Sargodha among a group of the peoples who used to eat the flesh of the dead bodies. This is the example of necrophilia, where by digging the dead body out of the grave, the love or the sex is being done with the dead body, necrophilia. This is another example of necrophilia. Necrophilia. This is the example of necrophagia, eating the flesh of the dead body, drinking the blood of the dead body. Another perversion opposite to the sadism, that is the masochism. Here, unlike the sadism, where the gratification is achieved by causing pain to others, here the person gets gratification by receiving the pain or the torture or humiliation from the other to his own body and mind. So this is the reverse of the sadism. This is the obtaining the sexual gratification by receiving a painful stimuli, by being bitten, tortured, or humiliated from the woman. This is given the name after the author von Stachel Mazoch, who, like the French author of Sade, described the characters of these persons who get their gratification by receiving the pain from their other partners in the form of the torture, in the form of the humiliation, in the form of the being bitten from other persons. The more they are bitten, the more they are getting satisfaction. And it is although common in males, but also very common among the females. That is why the females who, after their marriage, even receiving severe injuries, tortures, humiliation from their husband, they don't claim for separation. These are said to be feminine personalities because they don't satisfied. They are not satisfied until and unless they are tortured by their husbands. This is the instinct or the personality disorder of such type of females. The woman particularly invite the man to inflict pain. For example, a person who, after performing the labor the whole day, enter the home and the female partner or the wife shout suddenly at him or put some problem before him. The result is the torture by the husband over the female. Sometimes the death may occur as a result of the masochistic exercises or the attitude. This is the example of gratification by the male partner from the female partner by receiving the pain or the injury. Another example of masochism gratification being received to the male partner by from the female partners. This is the example of inviting a calm husband by disturbing him in a different ways so that the result is the quarrel or the fighting between the two persons. Again, this is an example where the person gets gratification by sustaining injuries from or by different instruments. This is the example who are very common among our age group, among our society, which is said to be lip biting by pressing their lips between their teeth, particularly in the situations of distress. In example of masochism, gratification being received by applying some grips or being arrested. Another perversion, again, which is requiring a partner. This is the gratification which is achieved by being rubbed their different parts of the body with the other partners. Frotter is said to rub, means to rub. So this is the gratification which is achieved by rubbing their different parts of the body from the different parts of the body of other partners. This is common among the persons who are traveling in buses, in crowds, or in lifts. This is the very common compulsion which is observed in different groups of the societies where the gratification is achieved by getting or by being rubbed in different situations by rubbing their different parts of the body with the different parts of the body of other partners. This is said to be fracturism. Next perversion where the partner is required, that is the pedophilia, where the love for the children is observed by the adult or the aged persons. The adult persons are repeatedly engaged in the sexual activities with the children as the heterosexual partners or the homosexual partners. This is also very common among our society. The homosexual activity or the heterosexual activity with the children, with the small age group persons by the aged persons or the adult persons. Uranism, another perversion. This is the perversion in which the sexual gratification is achieved either by fingering, fondling, fellatio means the oral stimulation of the male genitals, or cunnilingus means the oral stimulation of the female genitals. These are the different forms of getting gratification in the form of the fingering, fondling, fellatio, or the cunnilingus. Second group of perversions which don't require a partner for gratification. Voyeurism, also known as scopophilia, in which there is excessive desire to see the genital of the other person or to watch the act of the intercourse. Here the person used to peep into the lighted bedrooms, and these are said to be peeping toms. Here you can see the person is getting gratification by viewing into the other person's bedroom which are lighted. Again, another example where the act of the sexual intercourse between the two partners is being observed and being enjoyed by another person very silently under the effect of voyeurism. Again, another example of voyeurism. Peeping through the blinds into the bedrooms of other persons, even with the help of the lens. Voyeurism. Another perversion which don't require any partner, that is the exhibitionism. Here it is the demonstration of the body parts before the other sex partners. This is the sexual gratification by showing their external genitals to women or young girls with or without the act of the masturbation. Demonstration of personal private parts, exhibitions. Third group of the perversions which require some articles of or the objects for the sexual gratification. This is said to be fascism. By seeing or gratification is obtained by contact or sight of some part of the female body or even clothing or other articles. And this is very common among the English or the Punjabi films where some part of the body of the female is displayed and the viewers become desirous to have the further part which never comes, and this increases the market rate of that film and box is increased. So fascism is the sexual gratification by contact or the sight of the some part of female body or even clothing or other articles, even the shoes, the undergarments or other parts, and these are said to be fetish subject objects. Even some persons get their gratification by getting the sexual stimulation. They masturbate and discharge into the shoes, into the clothes of the other partners. It is dealt under the Section 294 Pakistan Penal Code. Another perversion, that is the transvestism or the euphemism. Trans means across and vest means dress. This is the perversion in which one desires to be identified as opposite sex. This is achieved by wearing the clothes of the opposite sex. The transvestite males find sexual pleasure in wearing female dress as underclothes, braziers, and knickers. Similarly, the female who wear the dresses of the male or behave like the male persons. Next perversion, that is the transsexualism. Here, there is some genetic disorder in which the person wants to adopt the opposite sex. To adopt the opposite sex, medical procedure or even the surgical procedures are preferred to be adopted by such person. This is said to be transsexualism, and this is more common in the males. And this, the Michael Jackson was the very good example of this perversion. Even in Pakistan, Begum Nawaz Sharif and other characters are also present. It may be due to some chromosomal abnormalities or the hormonal imbalance. Another perversion, that is the urolagna. This is the gratification by the sight or the odor of the urine or the feces. Another is the satyriasis. This is the excessive sexual desire in the males who may seek multiple sex partners or the needs sex more frequently as compared to the normal man. Means this is the abnormal excessive sexual desire seen in case of males. If this excessive abnormal sexual desire is seen in female, this is said to be nymphomania. Then other perversions which are nowadays very cognizable in our society, particularly in Pakistan, that is the sexual harassment. This is done or common among the working women where they become the victim of the sexual harassment by the male counterparts or the seniors. There is unwelcome sexually determined behavior, whether directly or by implication. This may be shown either by the physical contact or the advances. This is the example of sexual harassment just to help the other partner but getting gratification. Again, by giving the unwelcome dialogues or the comments over the female. Another example of perversion is indecent assaults. It is an offense committed on a female with the knowledge or intent to outreach her modesty, pressing thighs, slapping over buttocks. So this was about the sexual offenses in the form of the natural sexual offenses, where the natural recommendation of the nature in the form of the female genital is being used. But if the sex is legal in the form of the rape, zina, or the incest, or the adultery, that will become sexual offense. In the other group, there is the unnatural openings of the body are used for the sexual gratification. This is based or this groups the unnatural sexual offenses in the form of sodomy, lesbianism, or tribadism, uh, and sex with the animal bestiality. This leads to formation of the group of the unnatural sexual offenses, and third group was the perversions in which the abnormal sexual behavior is conducted, but there is no activity of the sexual intercourse, but only the sexual gratification through different actions, through different behaviors. In first group, some pattern is required like the sadism, where the gratification is achieved by causing the pain to others. And in the second group, masochism, where gratification is achieved by causing pain to by receiving pains from others, masochism. And most of the people, both sadism and masochism, in different degrees, different concentration is present simultaneously. Then the Fracturism, in the second, another group of the perversion where no partner is required, like the exhibitionism, and third, where the perversion gratification is achieved through the objects of other persons. So these are the different perversions in dealing with the sexual abnormal sexual behaviors leading to formation of the different sexual offenses. Any question up till now? There is a comment or the query from a gentleman who is saying that women can be rapists too. Is any law in place to protect the males? At present, I can only show sympathy with you. Just I can say this, otherwise, there is no such examples, although the law is also protecting the rights of the males. There are number of examples where the males has been victimized, male has been used, or rape has been conducted on them by the group of the woman or single woman, but no such example in our society has still been brought and shown to any person, because this is against the ego of the male that he can claim that he has been overpowered by the female. Even then, my sympathies are with you. Any other question or the comment? It means you have get the benefit of the today's lecture up to the maximum. So there is no question, there is no query from your side. Okay, thank you.